The zero waste movement hit the internet in the mid-2010s with a new way to save the planet. With blogs and YouTube videos abound, the movement changed the direction of the environmental conversation online. But here we are over 10 years after the movement first started, and what did it actually do? Today's video is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Head on over there if you want to get behind the scenes content, early access to videos, and exclusive access to us and the rest of the team. The zero waste movement as we know it today started in the mid-2010s, and at that time, Lauren Singer was one of the most famous of many writers and influencers in the niche with her mason jar of trash. The idea was that with deliberate purchasing and habit building, you could live a life that was nearly completely waste-free. She has made a huge career off of this idea, and she really got the trend moving with her blog, Trash is for Tossers. Now, of course, she turned this into a YouTube channel, and soon there was many others who followed in her path, including me.
Oh God, it's freaking awful.
Now, if you saw our video about minimalism, you'll know that I have participated with more than a couple of YouTube trends over the years, but I would say that these two were definitely my biggest. At the time, my life was already pretty minimalist, and zero waste kind of fit nicely into that. Now, I won't lie, a part of why I started tagging my content as zero waste was because there was seemingly an endless amount of viewership for the subject. The core ethos of the movement started getting applied to everything from grocery hauls to weddings. Yes, we threw a zero waste wedding and it was awesome. But today that trend has lost a lot of its momentum and I'm no longer making videos about it. So what happened? Now, to understand why I think that this trend lost its mojo, we need to go back to some of the core tenets of what zero waste was supposed to be. The vision of this movement was similar to a lot of self-improvement trends. By living your life zero waste, you could make your life better. And in this particular case, you could also reduce your impact on the planet as well. Now, of course, this on its own is kind of just objectively a good thing, right? And I still try to uphold a lot of the same values in my life to this day. Where I thought that this personally did a lot of good was in the way that it made you think and become more aware of how much packaging and waste was just considered normal in our everyday life. The creators at this time were really opening people's eyes to the fact that it wasn't actually normal to have all your vegetables individually wrapped in plastic, or to throw out your coffee cup or water bottle after you've used it. Now, it might seem super obvious to you watching this video today, but I still get comments on old videos of people asking if there's a zero waste swap for paper towels. Now, the zero waste message was actually a lot more nuanced than this, obviously. Shopping locally, plant-based eating, and second-hand thrifting were all messages that went hand in hand and are still actively being talked about today by creators. But as the zero waste movement got bigger and bigger and bigger, it started to come under a lot more scrutiny. It became obvious over time that the zero waste lifestyle presented in these blogs and in these videos was mostly only possible for certain people.
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
You've never actually set foot in a supermarket, have you?
The reality is that a lot of content being created about zero waste living centered around the zero waste swaps that you would need in order to do it. Most of these were disposable items that you would then replace with a plastic-free alternative, right? We're talking about like safety razors, shopping bags, food containers, reusable cups to replace your paper ones, menstrual cups or period underwear, refillable bottles for your bathroom and cleaning detergents, mason jars so that you can store everything, and all of those things are not free. And the thing is, a lot of these replacements were genuinely better than the thing that they replaced and actually weren't that tough of a switch, like the reusable cup or safety razors. These products genuinely made drinking coffee and shaving better. Also, if you are interested in purchasing some of these zero waste products to maybe create a little less waste in your life, the ones that I personally use every single day and that I recommend are Clean Canteen water bottles and Leaf Shave razors. They will be linked down in the description if you want to support our channel that way. But there were always a few of these things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like if you've ever used bamboo cutlery, it sucks. Your steel straws that you bought to save the planet never actually get used because it turns out you don't actually use a straw that often. Buying locally costs more money. DIY projects require a lot of time. Composting your food waste only works if you have a compost, and recycling is insanely complicated. Now put yourself in the shoes of somebody who has a bunch of kids, works crazy hours, or isn't physically capable of making all that extra effort. A lot of people simply do not have the time or the bandwidth to drive to the bulk store, remember their steel straw every single time, or build a freaking compost in their backyard. What began as a wholesome group of granola lovers just using their metal straws and tote bags quickly turned into and started to feel more and more like a bit of a guilt trip. I've had people commenting on videos trying to call out the fact that we had a plastic cup in a shot or something, and Greta Thunberg gets blasted for having lunch in a train that happens to be wrapped in plastic. Now I know that Greta isn't a zero waste YouTuber, and this is probably a problem associated with how society sees environmentalism in general, but I think the whole tattling on your classmate behavior thing came partly from the way that zero waste content online looked. The mason jar as sort of like the peak of perfection that you could reach, the name itself called zero waste, and the aesthetics all really made it feel pure and minimalist. For a long time, it just seemed like there wasn't a middle ground. You either cared about the planet to do all the things necessary to cut the waste out of your life, or you were a bad person. But hey, maybe this is just the process of a trend developing into a culture, right? Growing pains that was ultimately a massive and positive effort trying to address a huge problem that a lot of people were really worried about. It was something for people to invest themselves in, to feel like they were a part of the solution. And I think genuinely that's really important. But then something happened that completely changed everything. You might remember back in 2019 when China just stopped taking our shit, or our recycling more specifically. This was, in my opinion, the beginning of the end of the zero waste movement. This was a huge wake-up call for a lot of people, because up until this point, the widespread understanding that recycling was just a massive lie wasn't really well known. I mean, that Climate Town video only came out in 2021. And I genuinely think that this realization pushed a lot of people away from the movement and into nihilism. All at once, it kind of became clear that in many places, the recycling and garbage holes went into the same trash bag, and that was kind of a metaphor for the entire system. Most people at that point were just like, F it, and walked out. Combine this with the whole pandemic thing that shook communities and made a whole new stream of disposable plastics that we had no idea what to do with, and it makes sense that the enthusiasm was kind of hard to maintain.
Maybe the destruction of the entire planet isn't supposed to be fun. Maybe it's supposed to be terrifying.
It's like being an Edmonton Oilers fan.
To Marchessault, wrister, and he scores!
Or a Maple Leafs fan, or a Winnipeg Jets fan, or a Montreal Canadiens fan, or a Vancouver Canucks fan, or a Calgary Flames fan. You know, sometimes we just need to win.
Not scientifically possible!
That was a very specific Canadian NHL hockey reference. That's just what I'm interested in, and you're watching my video, so you get hockey references. Now, I'm gonna be honest that my household image of zero waste living is not as pristine as it was when I was making videos about it, but I have retained core pieces of that lifestyle in my day-to-day life. And what I've done now is learn more about the systems that make our world as wasteful as it is. And would you believe it? It's those gosh darn big corporations. And this is actually the main reason why Future Proof was created. I made my first video about Birkenstocks because I had gone through all this effort and research to figure out what was the best sandals to buy for the summer, and whether or not it was worth it to spend over $100 on a pair of sandals that made you look like Jesus. And on the journey of making those early videos and finishing my degree in geography and environmental science, I realized that there are just so many factors that went into our individual purchases, and that in many cases, the companies that we buy stuff from just suck so bad.
These days, just buying a tomato at a grocery store means that you are unwittingly supporting toxic pesticides, exploiting labor, contributing to global warming. Humans think that they're making one choice, but they're actually making dozens of choices they don't even know they're making.
And yeah, it turns out that needing to buy stuff to live is almost as complicated as foraging in the forest sometimes. And this is because corporations and capitalism in general has made the best choice the hardest choice. Now look, of course, I could remind you about that one ad from the 70s, or the fact that all the recycling symbols themselves were designed by the plastic industry, or that most municipalities don't actually have the ability to recycle at all. But listen, we've already heard all of that, right? And that's kind of the point. I wouldn't say that the movement actually failed. The trend has changed, and we've moved on to a different word maybe, but what it sort of revealed along the way is this new level of understanding. Just like minimalism, the plant-based food movement, or electric cars, these are all moments in this story of humans trying to figure their shit out before the world ends. And as usual, we did kind of a bad job. But just like all other humans before us, that's just kind of the way it goes, right? Because of the zero waste movement, most of us fundamentally understand that it's an incredibly stupid waste of resources to get your coffee in a disposable cup every day. That a bidet is a way better way of cleaning your butt, and that every time that you get mad at your roommate for throwing all the household waste into one bin, that it was actually Coca-Cola that made half of that trash in the first place. So don't give up, I guess. That's what I'm trying to do. Cheer for positive change, you know, be that positive change if you can. And I think most importantly, probably at this point, just don't be a dick. Try and be a kind person. And if you like this video as well. And if you want to support the kinds of videos that we make on this channel, remember to subscribe, consider supporting us over on Patreon as well. And we'll see you next week for another upload.